On today's program, Nerdcognito points out the gaslighting idiocy of modern gaming media. Archlich Acererak has drowned in the Kool-Aid. Dungeoneer has delusions of grandeur, and the reigning champ returns as BDubs makes Dungeoneer look humble by comparison. I'm Daniel, the channel is Driving in Dragons, and folks, it's Monday, so you know this is intelligence as a dump stat. Here we take the most blazingly idiotic takes in TTRPG gaming, and we blow them out of proportion for comedic effect. Unlike the normal SOP for the hobby, which is to blow them out of proportion because we take things way too seriously for what is essentially grown people playing make-believe. Before we get into all that, there's some housekeeping that has to be handled. As you all know, I am in the midst of the 7 Keys of Effective TTRPG Design project, and every other week, I'm dropping a video on the latest of the keys to design success. This week is Know Your Niche. Some of you also are aware that I stream on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of each month, and that to go along with the 7 Keys project, I'm hosting a game designer or industry professional each time to discuss the key to design success mentioned in that week's video. But there's a snag. Life gets in the way, and I have a business engagement this Thursday, and I need to figure out what to do with the stream. So I made a poll on Friday. Then, out of the 4 options, pre-record, do it members only early and then repost, reschedule it next week, and push it to the next stream date, you guys voted for a tie. That's right, 32% said pre-record, 32% said push it to the next scheduled stream. So I'm going to get with my guests and see what they are available for, and I'll go from there. Maybe I'll split the baby and do like a members-only live pre-recording. We shall see, but I appreciate everyone who voted, and I will post on the channel after getting with my guests for the topic of knowing your niche. I hope you are all enjoying the 7 keys. Here's the playlist if you need to catch up, and add your thoughts in the comments below. That being said, don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. As you all know, the super stickers, super chats, channel memberships, and Patreon pledges all go towards the project of fixing up a car to give away to someone who needs it in our hobby. So throw me a few bucks to support a good cause. Now, let's get on with the show. We open with Nerdcognito, who appears on the nice list this week. If they're nice, why are they here? And who is naughty? Well, they're here because they called the overall TTRPG media sphere out on their bullshit. You see, numerous outlets and even a few quote-unquote dungeon tubers have recently tacked on to this idea that the Mercer effect is a myth. Nerdcognito pointed out that no, in fact, it is not. This is yet another massive gaslighting operation by the Wizards of the Coast-backed squad of paid homers and hangers-on to rehab the reality that they created. Make no mistake, despite what these professional retards tell you, Critical Role is not actual D&D gameplay. It isn't. And the numbnuts Jenny D, pointy hat, dungeon dude, Kotaku, gaming media princess shill moron telling you otherwise is the TTRPG equivalent of Dr. D David Schultz slapping John Stossel for asking him if pro wrestling was fake. Those of you who don't know, a pro wrestler named Dr. D was once asked by journalist John Stossel that, hey, is pro wrestling fake? And David Schultz slapped him across the face and said, did that feel fake to you? It's kind of the same thing that these clowns are doing to you about Critical Role. The Mercer effect is demonstrably true. And not just in the classic sense of players having extremely unrealistic expectations about their GMs, but also in breeding an entire generation of players with a completely unrealistic expectation of how the game is played and how the rules operate at a normal table. Critical Role is scripted. Not in the, here are your lines of dialogue sense, enter stage right, take a knee at this mark, but in the, we all sat down and established certain goals and timelines for this episode. We all know how many episodes we need your character for this season, and we all understand that we need to not be disruptive because our goal isn't gaming, it's showmanship for money kind of sense. Instead of building a game that we all want to play, WotC sold a make-your-own Critical Role kit for the past decade or so, tacked it on top of 5e, and now that is biting them in the ass. And now they want us all to believe that the pit bull chewing on their rear isn't real. Speaking of D&D delusions, let's visit Archlich Acererak for moronic fantasies from the other side. You see, Acererak is pimping out a fiction that has become popular in the OSR-adjacent grognard crowd here lately. D&D is dead as a brand, killed by modern audiences and corporate pandering. But D&D lives on spiritually in Castles and Crusades, Dungeon Crawl Classics, and OSE. This is frankly stupid, okay? 5e sold out, they outsold every other edition of D&D, and it's not even remotely close. There's a possibility that in terms of inflation-adjusted gross revenues, 5e may have outsold all the other editions combined. Though that's kind of difficult to pin down because there's different reporting methods, there's incomplete data. TSR was a private company. A lot of what we get from Wizards of the Coast is just their book sales. But still, 5e is not, as a brand, D&D is very much alive. To this day, the rough estimates are that there are 2 players of the current D&D edition for every player of other games. And that's all games, not just D&D editions. It is an absolute behemoth. And despite tourists filtering out of the hobby now, and 5.5e being a complete dismal failure, I can still walk into any game shop on any given weekend and get a fresh group of 5e players pretty quickly. And I can't do that for any other game. So pull your head out of your Acererak and stop fooling yourself. D&D ain't even close to dead, numbskull. Brendan Lee Moron and the Critical Fail crew still have more viewers than the games you mentioned have players. I swear, we bust on J. Scott Garibay on an almost daily basis for this, for his D&D related rectal methane-induced hallucinations. But some of the people on our side, just as bad. Well, at least on our side, we have the level-headed creative types that gave us Corvid Codex Volume 1. That's right, it's ad break time, folks. But I have 2 places for you to spend money, and I'll make it quick. Corvid Codex is top-shelf pulp fantasy. You like old school? These OSR gamers got their pens out and gave you old school. Sci-fi, space adventure, science fantasy, sword and sorcery, cyberpunk. We got it all in the 168 pages of premium 6x9 paperback, and we've got a volume 2 that's in the works now. The cover art? Well, that's from your boy Patio Cakes, who does a lot of illustrations for White Shark magazine. And he's also in the middle of White Dwarf Summer. He's got the custom tees, shorts, button-ups, stickers, mugs, all that good swag stuff over there with a nice chunk going towards Preborn, which is a charity that provides expecting mothers with ultrasound imaging that can very often be life-saving in some very direct ways. So, if you have a few bucks, just to spare now, grab yourself a Speedo-wearing dwarf t-shirt so your wife and kids are too embarrassed to bother you while you check out your copy of Corvid Codex over by the pool this summer. The links are in the description, and I'm not paid to say this stuff, but I do it anyway. So now, it comes to this. At the end of all things, our discussion of diluted TTRPG Nimrods ends where this very series began, in the camp of the BroSR. 2 titans of Tartary, 2 bishops of buffoonery don the mitre of moronic nonsense and spew forth their delusions of grandeur upon what should be by now the suspecting population of the TTRPG social media. First, Dungeoneer, a BroSR initiate who has fully embraced the matching gray sweatsuits and same haircuts of Jeffro's followers. A comment was made that DMs don't just get to show up each week with no prep like the players do, and Dungeoneer jumped in with, "Yes, we do. Great ones, at least." No, Dungeoneer. Great DMs do not show up with no prep. Great DMs can run with no prep and have the ability to craft a game on the spot and adapt to unforeseen things, but a great GM with no prep loses out to a mediocre GM who does not every single time. Here's where the BroSR and the Rawtard crowd loses their credibility. They both espouse one very specific playstyle that works one very specific way and are utterly incapable of understanding all the others, even when those playstyles are outlined in the very books that they're slapping and thumping like Bibles. Even worse, they're just hypocrites, because they spout off zero prep like a religious mantra, but what they really do is simply use other people's prep instead. Great GMs can adapt and create on the fly, but they don't unless they have to. Dungeoneer, on the other hand, just discovered the Konami code and thinks that makes him good at Contra. Of course, for him to join a cult, there must be a leader. And we know that the leader of that cult is Jeffro Pamphlet Pusher Johnson. Of course, all great leaders also have a number 2, and when Jeffro climbed off his high horse to take a number 2, it was BDubs. Winner of the dumbest of the dumb in 2025. In the crown jewels of the BroSR, he glitters as the Hope Diamond with an IQ number that almost matches that gem's carats. BDubs has done little to defend his throne here because he has been busy spewing equally idiotic nonsense about politics and social issues all year instead of regaling us with his gaming stupidity. But empty is the head that wears the crown, and BDubs has been forced to return to his kingdom. A player who is bored in a BroSR campaign is either having a bad night or is a dullard. It is clearly the player's fault if they don't enjoy the BroSR's completely unstructured yet rigidly controlled half-assed digital LARP that's about 10% AD&D and about 90% talking about how they play D&D online. He even exposes the business, to coin a pro wrestling term, as they are wont to do. You see, one of the many super fun things you can do in a BroSR game is to think about how you can do it better. Because that's what every GM hopes for, to run a game that leads their players to sit around saying, God, I can't wait till this is over so I can do something more fun, like play this game with somebody else. I really want to review the Bros' new book, largely because I'm convinced that it is just as much a LARP as their last pamphlet of nonsense and their entire online presence. But the only issue is I utterly refuse to support anything Jeffro Johnson has a hand in. Maybe Dungeoneer will knock on my door with a free copy and tell me about how the awesome BroSR Jonestown stain Jeffro is running this year is coming up. BDubs says you will love the Kool-Aid so much, even if all you get from drinking it is a strong desire to go make your own Kool-Aid that doesn't taste like brake cleaner. As for me, I'll just drink bourbon with about 5 packs of BC headache powder mixed in. See you guys next time.